Walk into Marcus's apartment and you'll notice something most people overlook: nothing flashy. Nothing screaming for attention, just quiet control. A modest car key hanging by the door. A slow cooker doing its job. A brokerage account growing in the background without constant checking. His life doesn't try to impress you, it quietly builds. Now step into Derek's place, and the energy shifts. Boxes unopened. Purchases still waiting to justify themselves. Notifications buzzing. Money moving, but not forward. Everything looks like progress, yet somehow, nothing compounds. Same city, same kind of job, nearly the same income, but one life is expanding, and the other is stuck spinning. Marcus has built serious wealth by his mid-30s. Derek is still trying to feel in control of numbers he avoids looking at. The difference isn't talent. It isn't luck. It's the small, consistent decisions most people ignore because they don't feel exciting enough to matter. And that's where everything changes. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't come from one big breakthrough. It comes from mastering what feels boring. Most people are out there chasing the one thing that will change their financial life. The perfect investment, the perfect timing, the secret strategy. But that idea? It's costing people decades. Real wealth isn't built on discovery. It's built on discipline repeated long enough for time to take over. Think about this for a second. Most millionaires didn't inherit money. Many never even earned massive salaries. They didn't win because they found something special. They won because they stayed consistent while everyone else got distracted. That's the game. And it starts with one powerful shift. Stop relying on motivation and start designing systems. The first move is simple, but incredibly effective. Make saving automatic. Because if saving depends on how you feel, you've already lost. When money moves before you even see it, something incredible happens. You stop negotiating with yourself. There's no internal debate. No, maybe next month. It just happens. Quietly. Consistently. And over time, that quiet consistency becomes something powerful. You don't feel the sacrifice. You don't notice the effort. But one day you look at your account and realize it's working. That's how momentum is built. Now let's talk about something most people underestimate: the car you drive. Not because it gets you from one place to another, but because of what it silently costs you. A high monthly payment doesn't just take money, it steals opportunity. It locks your future into a cycle where your income is already spoken for before you even earn it. And here's the truth most people avoid. That payment isn't about transportation anymore. It's about identity. But identity shouldn't cost your future. Because every dollar tied up in something losing value is a dollar that could have been building something that grows. The same principle shows up in something even more ordinary: food. It doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like convenience, like reward, like something too small to matter. But small things, repeated often enough, become massive. The difference between cooking and constantly buying meals isn't just about money, it's about direction. One builds control, the other builds dependency. And over years, that gap doesn't stay small. It expands into something most people never expected. That's the pattern you start to notice. Wealth isn't about dramatic moves. It's about the quiet habits that either move you forward or slowly pull you back. And one of the biggest traps people fall into is believing they can afford more just because someone approved it. But approval isn't alignment. Just because you can take on a bigger financial commitment doesn't mean it supports the life you actually want. Because real freedom isn't about owning the most, it's about needing less. It's about having space, margin, the ability to handle life without everything falling apart the moment something goes wrong. That's what security feels like. Not stress, not pressure, not constant calculation. And yet, so many people trade that peace for things that look good, but quietly take control. Now here's where it gets even more real. Most people say they budget. But if you're not actually tracking where your money goes, you're not in control, you're guessing. And guessing is expensive, because money doesn't disappear, it moves. And if you're not paying attention, it moves in directions that don't serve you. Subscriptions you forgot, fees you ignored, spending that felt small in the moment but adds up over time. Clarity changes everything. When you see the truth, you gain power. You stop reacting and start deciding. And that's when your money starts working with you instead of against you. Then comes one of the most overlooked opportunities of all: your raises. Every time your income increases, you face a choice. Upgrade your lifestyle, or upgrade your future. Most people don't even realize they're choosing. The extra money just disappears into slightly better comfort, slightly easier living, slightly more convenience. But what if that increase never touched your lifestyle? What if it went straight into building something bigger? Then your life wouldn't feel dramatically different, but your future would. That's how quiet wins turn into massive results. And finally, one of the simplest strategies that outperforms almost everything else. Stop trying to outsmart the system. Invest steadily, keep costs low, and then, step back. Because the more people try to time, tweak, and chase, the more they interrupt the very process that creates growth. The real advantage isn't intelligence. It's patience. It's the ability to stay consistent when nothing exciting is happening, knowing that something powerful is building underneath. That's the difference between motion and progress. One feels fast but goes nowhere. The other feels slow, but changes everything. And if you really pay attention, you'll realize, the life you want isn't built in big moments. It's built in the small decisions you repeat when no one is watching. In one single year, the average investor made solid returns, but the market did something even bigger. That gap? It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't lack of access. It was behavior. People guessed right about the market only a fraction of the time, worse than flipping a coin. And here's the part most don't want to hear, it wasn't beginners making mistakes. It was people trying to be smart. And that, trying, is exactly what cost them. Even professionals, people with data, teams, experience, struggled to consistently beat the market. Not sometimes, consistently. So what does that tell you? The strategy that actually works doesn't look impressive. It doesn't sound exciting. It doesn't give you something to brag about. But it wins. Because the market rewards patience and quietly punishes overconfidence. The simple approach, the one most people ignore, isn't the backup plan. It is the plan. Now here's where things get real. Life doesn't ask for permission before it hits you. Something breaks. Something goes wrong. Something unexpected shows up. And in that moment, you find out whether you built protection, or just hoped you wouldn't need it. An emergency fund isn't exciting. It doesn't grow fast. It doesn't give you stories to tell. But it gives you something far more valuable, stability. Because without it, even a small problem turns into long-term damage. One unexpected expense, and suddenly you're borrowing at high interest just to stay afloat. You're trying to build your future while your present is quietly pulling you backward. That's not a strategy. That's a trap. You can't grow wealth while constantly repairing damage. So you prepare. Not because something might go wrong, but because eventually, something will. Now let's talk about something that looks like opportunity, but often isn't. The deals, the tips, the "this could change everything" conversations. They always come with excitement, urgency, a story that feels too good to ignore. But here's what they don't show you. The people who lost. Because for every visible success, there are thousands of invisible failures. And your brain? It's wired to focus on the big win, not the quiet losses. That's why so many people get pulled into things that feel promising, but statistically don't deliver. Real wealth doesn't chase attention. It grows quietly, without needing to convince you. So when something sounds exciting, pause. Because most of the time, excitement is not a green light. It's a warning. And that leads to one of the simplest habits that can completely change your financial direction. Give yourself time. Not forever. Just a pause. When you feel the urge to buy something, wait. Because what feels urgent today often fades within days. That need you felt at night? It looks very different a couple of days later. And most of the time, it disappears completely. This isn't about discipline. It's about creating space between impulse and action. That space saves you more than you realize. Over time, those small decisions stack up. Quietly, consistently. Now bring it all back. Two people, same starting point, same opportunities, but different habits. One focused on long-term results, the other on short-term feelings. And over time, that small difference didn't stay small. It expanded, not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily, until the gap became impossible to ignore. And here's the truth that changes everything. This isn't about being cheap. It's not about restriction. It's about control. The ability to handle life without everything falling apart. The ability to make decisions without pressure. The ability to choose your path, instead of being forced into one. That's what you're really building. Not just money. Options. Because when you have options, your life changes. You can walk away from what drains you. You can move toward what matters. You can create a future that isn't dependent on constant survival. And all of that starts with habits that don't look impressive, but work. So don't wait for something exciting. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Pick one thing. Start there. Because the truth is, this simple, consistent path most people ignore? It's the one that actually leads somewhere.